I was elbows deep in rewriting a client-facing report that Kayla, the founder's newly anointed daughter/chief strategy officer, had proudly mangled into a word salad of buzzwords and pastel clip art. Deadline was in 4 hours. She dumped it on my desk at 9:13 a.m. with a sticky note that just said, "Make it sparkle sparkles." Sparkle. Like we were planning a wedding, not managing a $42 million government logistics contract. That was the moment I knew something in the ecosystem had gone off the rails. Not broken, just infected, like mold creeping under drywall. At first, you think it's just your imagination. Then the ceiling caves in during a staff meeting. 6 years. I had given 6 years to Nova Task. First one in, last one out. I built our org chart on a napkin in the break room when we still thought payroll was a suggestion. I trained half the current staff. I wrote the damn onboarding manual that Kayla skimmed once, then promptly started contradicting. And now I was scrubbing her garbage like some kind of strategic janitor, while she pranced around introducing herself to vendors like she invented procurement. I know I sound bitter. I promise it's not that. You get tired. There's a special kind of exhaustion that comes from being absolutely essential and utterly invisible. I don't need a trophy, but I do need you to get my name right in the Slack thread when I save your quarterly audit from going full dumpster fire. By the way, if you're one of the 90% who listen but haven't subscribed yet, hey, no pressure. But every like and sub is like a quiet high five to the people who actually do the work behind the scenes. Keeps the coffee flowing and the corporate chaos coming. Anyway, the first time I met Kayla, she wore a shirt that said I'm not bossy. I'm the boss, and I thought it was ironic. It wasn't. Her dad, the founder, had just gifted her a C-level title like my first promotion playset, Chief Strategy Officer. No experience, no background, just freshly minted from a business degree that probably cost more than my house. She walked in with a gold MacBook and a confidence that could have lit up a power grid, and immediately asked where we kept the interns. We didn't have interns. At first, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she'd surprise us. Maybe she'd want to learn. That dream died by week 2, when she started renaming entire departments based on YouTube influencers. I kid you not, Brand Alchemy became our new name for logistics. I had to update it in 3 internal systems and 2 dashboards because Kayla thought it sounded more future-facing. She made a big show of every meeting. I mean big. Full PowerPoint intros about synergy and operational moonscapes. I once saw her deliver a 10-minute presentation using only stock images of wolves. She didn't know how to pull revenue reports, or what a P and L looked like. But she always circled back to big picture thinking while I quietly fixed what she broke. The team learned fast. If Kayla made a decision, they came to me afterward to ask what we were really doing. If she made a promise to a client, I called them the same day to walk it back and reconfirm what we'd actually deliver. If she rearranged the Asana board, which she did constantly, I kept a hidden screenshot folder of what it was supposed to look like, just in case something exploded. Still, I stayed quiet, professional, calm. I documented, I smoothed. I handled the finance team's resignation scare after she told them their tools were outdated. I fixed her hiring blunder after she tried to onboard her CrossFit friend with a resume full of typos and no actual experience in supply chain. I held it all together because that's what I do. But holding things together is thankless work. You don't get applause for keeping the pipes from bursting. People only notice when there's water on the floor. And Kayla? She saw my competence as competition. Every meeting she wasn't in charge of made her twitchy. Every time someone thanked me, her eyes narrowed. She wanted to be the center of the org chart, not orbiting it, so she started picking. Lisa, I feel like you're not being a team player. Lisa, maybe you're a little stuck in your ways. Lisa, could you let me lead this project? I mean, from a visibility standpoint, each line came with a tight-lipped smile and a splash of faux feminist empowerment. It was her way of saying, you're in my way, dressed up in pastel positivity and Instagram quotes. The founder, bless his deluded heart, kept nodding along like she was the second coming of Steve Jobs in heels. But I wasn't going to break. I've worked with worse. I had a folder saved to my drive called "Oh No Baby, What Is You Doing?" Screenshots, memos, date-stamped Slack threads of every mess she made. Not for revenge, just for insurance. Because when someone like Kayla comes for you, they never come directly. They'll smile as they cut the floor out from under you and wonder why you're screaming on the way down. What I didn't know, not yet, was that her plan wasn't to sideline me quietly. It was to fire me, publicly, loudly, with all the grace of a TikTok breakup video. And it was already in motion. It started small. Kayla forwarding my project updates to the board and removing my name from the footers, renaming documents I'd written and attaching her initials like some kind of branding exercise. The first time she did it, I figured it was just rookie ego. The second time, I knew it was deliberate. By the 5th, I stopped wondering. She began showing up to vendor calls she had no business being on. Sat in, nodded like a bobblehead, then repeated my points 5 minutes later like she'd conjured them from her glittery brainstem. Once, interrupted a supplier halfway through a sentence to say, "What Lisa means is, what I meant was I'm this close to duct taping your mouth shut with the Q4 roadmap," but I smiled and said nothing. That's the trap of being competent. The more you fix, the more invisible you become, until someone like Kayla swoops in, plants her flag on your mountain, and announces she climbed it barefoot. She reorganized our task management board and nearly tanked our revenue ops cycle. She installed a color-coded urgency matrix that delayed contract renewals by 2 weeks. She pushed her CrossFit buddy into a senior role and told me to onboard him with empathy. The man thought ERP was a sleep disorder. Still, I kept us afloat. Quietly rewired the back end. Sent late-night follow-ups. Rebuilt vendor trust. I'd draft a project plan, then watch her present it with no edits, except, of course, she changed the title to something like Kayla's 5-pillar transformation model. It was my work wearing her lipstick. I vented to no one, not even my husband. I just made a new folder in my personal drive, called it Contingency. Inside, timestamped project files, credit trail receipts, Slack exports. No drama, no paranoia, just receipts. I also started blind copying myself on every critical email, took screenshots of performance dashboards before she tweaked them for investor slides. She once inflated a pilot program's success by 44% because it looked cleaner that way. Cleaner, sure, until the client followed up with a lawsuit. Guess who took that call? I did. I always did. I was the quiet net beneath every one of her Cirque du Soleil stunts, until the net started fraying. Investors noticed the tension. One of them, James, low-key guy from Chicago who'd backed us early, called me on a Thursday after a monthly update. "Everything okay over there?" he asked. His tone was friendly but loaded. "Operationally, yes," I replied. Then, because I was tired, I added strategically, "Depends on how you define the word." He laughed. "That bad, huh?" I didn't elaborate, but I knew he knew. Kayla had run that entire call like she was auditioning for Shark Tank. Tossed out phrases like omnichannel synergy and next-gen outreach verticals, then closed with a Canva slide that had fireworks on it. Fireworks. For a Q1 status update, the founder didn't say a word during the call. Just smiled like a proud dad watching his kid's macaroni art presentation. I don't know if it was denial or delusion. Maybe both. I'd once seen him tank a 7-figure deal over a handshake misread. He could be shrewd when he wanted. With Kayla, blind spot the size of Kansas. What Kayla didn't understand, what she couldn't understand, is that operations isn't theater. It's plumbing. You don't get applause for fixing a burst pipe. You just quietly keep the floor dry, but she wanted applause, constantly. And she'd gut the whole infrastructure to get it. One day she invited herself to our ops sync. Didn't ask, just popped in and started assigning people to projects they'd never heard of. "Michael, can you take point on the sprint review for Fulfillment 3.0? She said. Michael looked at me, then back at her. "I don't know what that is." "Lisa will brief you," she chirped. Fulfillment 3.0 was a slide deck she made about drones. "We don't use drones. We move medical supply pallets." But she saw a LinkedIn post about AI logistics and decided it was visionary to pretend we did too. After she left, the room was dead silent. "I'm documenting this," I said. I didn't even try to hide it anymore. I opened the contingency folder mid-meeting. Everyone saw it. No one protested. I wasn't scared. I was tired and ready. I'd seen enough leaders fumble their way into flameouts. What I hadn't seen yet but knew was coming was her big move, the grand gesture. Narcissists like Kayla don't nibble, they bite. Eventually, she'd want to prove she didn't need me. And when that day came, I wanted everything ready. The invite hit my inbox at 8:17 a.m. Subject line, Sparkles Team Realignment plus Exciting Vision Updates Sparkles. Sent by Kayla. No agenda, no heads up. Just a Zoom link and a sea of emojis like she was planning a baby shower, not detonating half the org chart. I stared at it for a moment, then checked my calendar. Time she'd picked overlapped with a vendor negotiation I'd rescheduled twice to accommodate her. I messaged her directly, conflicts with vendor call. Critical for Q2 prep. "Can we reschedule?" She replied in under 10 seconds, "Please prioritize this. It's a new era." A new era. That was her whole thing lately. New energy, new rhythm, new strategic vibration. She said it like she was burning sage over a corpse, pretending the body didn't stink. 10 minutes before the call, I opened the contingency folder, updated the timeline doc, took a deep breath. Then I clicked the link. 17 faces popped up on screen, arranged in nervous little Brady Bunch squares. Half of them were ops. The rest were marketing, finance, even 2 junior devs I hadn't seen in months. My gut clenched. This wasn't a sync. This was theater. Kayla's face filled the center. Full glam, blazer, lashes. Soft focus zoom filter turned up to 11. She smiled like a weather anchor reporting on a tornado. "Hi, team," she chirped. "Thank you all for jumping on. I know this was short notice, but I wanted to share some exciting updates about our leadership vision moving forward." I heard the words, but my body locked up the way it did the day my old college roommate told me, "We need to talk. You just know when something stupid is about to go down." Started monologuing. "The growth we're seeing requires bold evolution. We're not just scaling, we're transforming. And transformation requires clarity, alignment, decisive direction." She paused, looked directly into the camera, and smiled like a shark that found a dropped GoPro. "That's why, effective immediately, we're restructuring leadership and operations. And as part of that transition, Lisa will be leaving Nova Task. No warning, no call, no side conversation, no dignity, just a decapitation by Zoom. I blinked. The room didn't react, it froze. Someone's cat meowed in the background like it was mourning me. Kayla kept smiling. We're grateful for all Lisa's contributions and we wish her the very best in her next chapter. But as of now, I'll be stepping in directly to guide operations into its future-facing evolution. She paused, tilted her head, and with the soft smugness of a child who just peed in a pool and blamed the dog, she said it, I'm a big boss now. I don't know what she expected. Tears, screaming, some viral meltdown she could screen record and send to HR. Instead, I stared straight into my webcam, not at her, through her. One long beat, no blinking. Then I said, very quietly noted, and I disconnected. No tantrum, no gasps, no exit speech, just a clean click. Power doesn't scream. Moves in silence. Within minutes, I'd revoked all passive sharing access from my Google Drive. The ops blueprint, locked. Internal SOPs, removed from public folders. Access logs, screenshotted. Everything else, downloaded, zipped, timestamped, and double-backed to my private cloud. Let her flail. Let her step in. She wouldn't even know how to find the invoice reconciliation folder. I named it Birthday Party 2016 just to throw off snoops like her. 15 minutes later, HR called. Voicemail. Their tone was bright, rehearsed, and 18% apologetic. Hi Lisa, we just heard about the transition Kayla announced. If you'd like to discuss offboarding options or delete. At 1:02 p.m., I got a text from James, the investor who'd sensed the storm brewing. Just 2 words, you okay? I texted back, better than you think, and I meant it. Because while Kayla was busy swinging her daddy's machete, she'd forgotten to check the fine print. I was a named officer, and she had just pulled the pin. The first wave hit about 18 hours after Kayla's little power play. At 3:14 a.m., I got a frantic text from Morgan in logistics. Lisa, sorry, I know you're out, but do you remember where the updated vendor escalation protocol's live? I stared at the screen, half asleep, thumb hovering. Then I rolled over and went back to sleep. By sunrise, the second wave had begun. My inbox, not the company one they'd already locked, but my personal one, was quietly being flooded. A client liaison I'd known for years emailed from her private Gmail. Hey, are you okay? Also, do you know who we're supposed to contact about the fulfillment portal? It's down. Of course it was down. Kayla had probably poked around the dashboard like it was a Pinterest board, clicked the wrong setting, and sent the entire backend into limbo. But she wouldn't admit that. She couldn't. The illusion of competence was the only thing she had. She couldn't fix it. She couldn't understand it. But she could narrate it, drown the failure in Instagram aphorisms and Canva slides, so she did. She sent a company-wide Slack blast titled Gear Growth Pains Equals Innovation Sparks High. It was 4 paragraphs of beige nothing. Words like opportunity, learning curve, bold steps. The kind of thing you write when you need to sound like a leader but don't know what the hell just exploded. Meanwhile, inside the actual engine room, fire, shipments missed, tracking dashboards froze. A warehouse in Cincinnati processed a triple order because the buffer settings were set to default. Someone on Reddit posted a photo of 800 Roman 4 bags piled behind a loading dock, captioned, "This is the future of logistics." Our client in DC saw it. Called Kayla, she didn't answer. Too busy holding a team elevation round table with beanbag chairs and croissants. She finally emailed him back 3 hours later and CC'd the wrong account manager. The client replied with 2 words, "Where's Lisa?" Inside the building, the walls started sweating. Junior staff began quietly Googling, "Can you walk away from a stock grant before it vests?" One engineer left mid-sprint review and never came back. Someone made a meme of Kayla as the Titanic captain, holding a latte while the ship nosedived behind her. It got passed around in private DMs. I got it forwarded to me by 3 different people. Meanwhile, Kayla just kept spinning. She hosted an all-hands Zoom where she said things like, "We're building the plane while flying it, and true visionaries thrive in turbulence." I watched the clip someone screen-recorded and sent me. I paused it on frame 12. You could see it in her eyes. She knew the plane was crashing, but she was too proud to grab a parachute. And the founder? Oh, he doubled down. Publicly, he called her young but brilliant, said she had next-gen instincts and untapped momentum. Privately, he tried to reach me via LinkedIn of all places. His message read, "Hi Lisa, hope you're well. Just curious, do you happen to have any notes on the Q2 partner reconciliation process? Totally understand if not." That smiley face, that killed me. 6 years of loyalty, sleepless nights, disaster avoidance, budget miracles, and now he's emoji begging for scraps like I'm still his ops fairy godmother. I didn't reply. Instead, I updated the contingency folder with a screenshot of the message, just in case because I knew what was coming. I could see it forming like a storm shelf on the horizon. Investors were circling. Clients were whispering, and Kayla, sealed inside her bubble of curated girl-boss delusion, kept talking louder to drown out the cracks. But cracks don't go away when you ignore them. They spread, they splinter, they collapse, and I was done patching them up. Now I just watched, distant, detached, not with rage, just eerie calm, like a firefighter off duty, sipping coffee while someone else plays with matches. Kayla thought she'd silenced me. but what she really did was cut the brake lines. Gravity was about to do the rest. It was a Wednesday when James, the investor from Chicago who never wasted words, called my personal number. I hadn't spoken to him since the reorg, though I'd noticed his name pop up in a few LinkedIn profile views. I figured he was watching, they all were. He didn't bother with pleasantries. Lisa, he said, voice flat, did you know you're listed in section 4.3 of the term sheet? I didn't flinch. Yes, I said. Do you have a copy? There was a pause, not long. Just enough to suggest gears grinding. I do now, he replied, and that was it. That was the moment the floorboards under Nova Task's glitter-coated chaos finally groaned. Section 4.3. It wasn't even buried deep, it was right there, plain language. The company agrees that no named officer shall be terminated or reassigned without prior written consent from the majority investor. Breach of this provision may render the agreement voidable at investor discretion. Simple, lethal, and Kayla had never read it. Of course she hadn't. She thought term sheet meant a slideshow with pastel gradients. The irony? I was the one who asked for that clause. Back when we were finalizing the last funding round, I was tired of being the silent mule carrying everyone's panic. So I sat down with legal, quietly, and asked if there was a way to protect continuity. Something that said, if you're going to throw the backbone out the window, at least do it with consent. The lawyer added it without a blink. No one on the founder's side paid attention. They were too busy high-fiving over the valuation bump. Now, that oversight had teeth. James didn't need to say it out loud, but I could hear it anyway. The board was pissed. His team had dug through the entire term sheet after getting wind of the client complaints, the staffing chaos, and that unfortunate Reddit photo of 30 defibrillators sitting in a rain-soaked alley. Investors weren't interested in Kayla's vision. They were interested in performance and liabilities. James exhaled into the phone. She fired you in a Zoom? Yep, I said. With no board notice? None. No internal memo. Not until afterward. It was just vibes and ego. He made a sound like he was grinding gravel in his teeth. She has no idea what she triggered, he muttered. She doesn't know what she doesn't know, I said, which is the most dangerous kind of ignorance. I heard voices in the background, legal team, I assumed, paper shuffling. A printer chirped. Then a woman's voice read aloud, Section 4.3, removal of named officers, investor approval required. James came back, we're convening tomorrow. Emergency session, you'll be looped. I don't work there anymore, I reminded him. His voice sharpened. Lisa, you're a named officer. That doesn't just vanish because someone's nepotism Barbie declared it on Slack. That line stuck with me. Nepotism Barbie, if only Kayla knew she'd been memed at the executive level. By the time we hung up, my pulse hadn't budged. No vindication, no smugness, just clarity. Like watching a chess match 2 moves from checkmate. I made tea, sat on my porch. The sunset was ridiculous, pink and smug, like the sky knew something the world didn't. Inside my laptop, the contingency folder blinked open. I renamed it. 4.3 voidable because that's what Nova Task had become now. A breach waiting to be triggered. A contract held together with false confidence and inherited arrogance. Kayla had booted me out like dead weight. She didn't know she'd just yanked the keystone out of the arch. And tomorrow, gravity was showing up early. The emergency board session was set for 10 o'clock a.m. sharp Pacific time. I wasn't invited. Did it need to be? My name was already in the room, on the page, in the claws, in the mouths of men who once treated me like office wallpaper. They held it on Zoom, of course, and like all corporate train wrecks, someone screen recorded it. I didn't ask for the file. It landed in my inbox at 11:12 a.m. Subject line, you'll want to see this. I watched it in my kitchen, still in slippers, eating toast over the sink. Nothing dramatic, no popcorn, just cold coffee and the quiet crackle of institutional failure unfolding in real time. The screen showed the familiar grid, the founder, looking sunburned and shiny, 3 outside board members, visibly annoyed, Kayla in a hot pink blazer, grinning like a kid who just learned how to say synergy. James, the lead investor, was already muted and scowling. Kayla opened the meeting with a little speech. Before we begin, I just want to thank everyone for being here on such short notice. Change can be uncomfortable, but innovation demands decisive leadership. I believe the team is better aligned now that we've cleared space for new growth energy. I could practically smell the lavender essential oil through the screen. The founder, let's call him Greg, though I used to call him boss, nodded proudly, like she'd just won a high school debate meet. The other board members stared back blankly. No one clapped. James cleared his throat. We called this meeting to address a compliance issue. That word compliance made Kayla twitch, just a flicker like someone had flicked a cold coin down her spine. James didn't look at her. He turned instead to a woman on the screen, late 40s, hair pinned back, zero makeup, glasses that screamed Harvard Law. This is Mara Elkins from Legal. Kayla blinked. Oh, hi, are we onboarding her or? Mara said nothing. She reached off screen and slid a piece of paper into view. The term sheet. Hard copy, yellow tab on the edge, highlighted, no one spoke. Mara slid it in front of Greg, silently. Greg squinted at it like she'd handed him instructions in Klingon. James said Section 4.3, bottom of the page. Greg read, and something changed. You could see it. The smile lines on his face didn't just fade, they collapsed. His neck went stiff. His jaw opened a fraction and locked shut. Kayla tilted her head. What's that? James didn't answer her. Mara did. Per Section 4.3, removal of any named officer without prior investor approval constitutes a breach of agreement. Said breach renders the term sheet voidable at investor discretion. She let that hang there. Greg blinked. What, Lisa? Mara nodded. Yes, Lisa Middleton, listed as named officer, operational integrity. Kayla laughed, actually laughed. Wait, Lisa, no. She's not on the exec team. I mean, not anymore. James unmuted. That's the problem. Greg looked like he'd swallowed a live mouse. Kayla tried again, but she wasn't, critical. I mean, she was admin, right? That's when one of the other board members finally spoke. She built half your logistics infrastructure, and your compliance framework added another. Kayla's smile was starting to fray. Okay, but this clause I didn't know. Nobody told me. Mara didn't blink. Ignorance of a binding document does not invalidate its authority. James jumped in. Lisa was terminated without notice. No consent. That breach means our last funding tranche is now frozen. Additionally, your D&O insurance policy is no longer guaranteed. Greg whispered something off mic, looked at the paper again. Then he dropped his pen. That sound, even through tinny speakers, was final. Kayla sat back, blinking rapidly. Wait, what does that mean? It means, Mara said flatly, that your unilateral personnel decision put the entire company in breach. Greg looked up, hollow-eyed. You fired the clause. Kayla's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. No words came. I hit pause on the video. Let the moment sit in silence. She thought she'd won. Thought she was a big boss. She hadn't fired me. She detonated the agreement holding the whole damn company together. And now the fallout had just begun. The moment the pen hit the table, the sound was like a gavel coming down on a guilty verdict. Greg didn't even reach for it. He just stared at the document like it had turned radioactive. One hand hovered in midair, useless. The other gripped the edge of the table like he might fall off the earth. Across the screen, the board shifted in their chairs, sensing the air change. Mara leaned back slightly, giving the silence room to breathe. Kayla still hadn't read the clause. Was too busy scanning faces for a cue, looking for someone to explain the joke, tell her this was all just a silly misunderstanding. Her smile twitched, faltered. Then she leaned forward toward the screen and finally read it. No named officer shall be terminated or reassigned without prior written consent from the majority investor. Breach of this provision may render the agreement voidable at investor discretion. Her face didn't fall immediately, not all at once. First, the corners of her mouth dropped. Then her eyes narrowed as her lips mouthed the line again. Then came the throat swallow, dry, hard, audible. Voidable, she repeated like it was a foreign word. Like reversible? No, Mara said almost gently. Voidable means we decide whether your agreement still exists. Kayla's eyes darted to Greg, then back to the document, then to James, who remained perfectly still, as if he were watching a dying star collapse in on itself. Wait, but I didn't even know about that clause, she stammered. I thought she was like operations admin. She was, James replied, operations integrity. That's why she was named. Another board member chimed in. We asked for 3 names. You gave us the CFO, the legal advisor, and Lisa. That was last year. You signed it. Kayla turned to her father, voice rising. Dad, I didn't know. Why didn't anyone tell me? Greg didn't answer. He just stared at the document like it was whispering its own eulogy. Mara spoke again, crisp and cold. This puts the last tranche of funding at risk. Additionally, your D&O insurance is exposed. The clause was included to ensure continuity in critical roles. Unilateral removal of a named officer, especially without investor notice, is a material breach. Kayla's hands fluttered, palms up. But we've already spent most of that funding. James nodded. Yes, and now your liability coverage is compromised. Retroactively. That hit her like a slap. She opened her mouth, then stopped. The realization, real, undeniable, finally cracked through whatever glitter-glue delusion she'd been living in. And for the first time in the entire meeting, she was silent. Greg finally spoke. One word, Lisa, just that, nothing else. It landed like a ghost walking through the room. Lisa warned us, one of the older board members muttered. She flagged the clause when it was signed. Said she wanted it there in case someone made a move without thinking. Kayla turned pale. I didn't even see it because you never read it, another member snapped. She looked down, deflated, cornered. The blazer, the lashes, the smug little smirk, all gone now. Just a scared girl at the helm of a machine she didn't know how to drive, mid-nosedive. James pulled the final lever. We're calling an investor review. No new executive actions until we complete a governance audit. All decisions frozen. That includes your role, Kayla. She froze. What? You're putting me on pause? You put the company on pause, Mara said. We're just aligning the controls. Greg still hadn't moved. Just stared at the clause like it might blink first. I hit play again. In the video's final moments, Kayla slowly reached forward and muted her mic. But it was too late. The silence she left behind said everything she never could. And me? I watched from my kitchen. Calm, clean, no gloating, just a steady pulse and a view of the crumble. I didn't need to be in that meeting. My name already was. The official notice went out 3 days later. In light of recent developments, all executive decisions are suspended pending governance review. No signatures, no fanfare, just a clean black banner across the internal dashboard and a PDF link from James's assistant. One click, and every C-suite fantasy Kayla had stitched together with hashtags and highlighters began to dissolve like sugar in warm water. Funding, suspended. Strategic meetings, canceled. Her pet projects, Dronify Logistics, Fulfillment 3.0, the Women Who Synergize Brunch series, shuttered overnight. And the website? Her title disappeared quietly. No memo sent. One day it read Chief Strategy Officer. The next it just didn't. The org chart was uploaded without a timestamp, like she'd never been there. No scandal, no confrontation, just erasure by omission. The corporate version of being ghosted by your own company. Internally, they said she was stepping back for optics. Optics. The word you use when someone's become a liability, but you don't want to clean up the blood in public. The investor audit began immediately. Greg was pulled into closed-door sessions and grilled on every signature. The clause, the communications gap, the complete lack of oversight. I heard through back channels he tried to play dumb, blamed it on miscommunication, claimed he thought Lisa had moved on naturally. But nobody was buying that anymore. The guy who once walked into investor meetings with a bomber jacket and a trust-the-process attitude now looked like a man standing outside his own house as it burned, suit slightly askew, holding a garden hose that wasn't connected to anything. The staff, shell-shocked. For years, they'd watched me run the quiet machine. Then Kayla parachuted in like she was auditioning for a startup-themed reality show and tried to run the place on Instagram quotes and scented whiteboards. Now the curtain had been pulled and they were left with empty platitudes and unanswered Slack messages. People started forwarding each other my old memos. One junior PM sent around a PDF I'd written last year called If I Get Hit by a Bus, Continuity Guide. It became required reading. Another engineer emailed me just one sentence, I think the bus came. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. My revenge wasn't the dramatic kind. No viral exposé. No rage-fueled lawsuit. Just a little clause. A line of text most of them never read. The fuse was already lit long before Kayla clicked end call on my Zoom termination. All I did was walk away and wait for the combustion. Because the truth is, I knew they'd bury themselves. Arrogance always thinks it's holding a shovel when it's really holding a detonator. Kayla's need for control. Greg's blind faith. The board's casual ignorance. It all came together like a symphony of self-destruction, loud, predictable, and irreversible. They built their bridge out of ego and paper, and when they walked across it, one by one it collapsed. I didn't push them, they jumped. And now all I had to do was watch the dust settle. The office was quiet, sunlight slicing through the blinds in clean, deliberate lines. Real wood desk, 2 glasses of water. One contract folder, unopened, sitting between us like a peace offering. Or maybe an apology. James leaned back in his chair and nodded toward it. You don't have to read it now, he said. But you should know, this one starts with your name on page 1. I smiled, small, sharp, no performance. I'll read it, I said, all of it. He laughed, short, tired, but real. I figured. It wasn't Novatask's office. This was something new. Smaller, sharper, quieter. A new venture, stealth mode, well-funded. Already structured around actual expertise instead of inherited ego. James had called me 2 weeks after the emergency freeze, said simply, I'd like to do it differently this time, and I want you in the room from day one. I asked what seat? He said, coup, with equity, real equity. So now we were here. He didn't offer compliments. No flowery retrospective on how I held it all together or deserved better. Just the offer, the title, and the full weight of trust placed quietly in my lap like a set of keys. While he talked, briefly, efficiently, I glanced out the window. Down on the street, traffic flowed in perfect rhythm. Pedestrians walking briskly. Nobody screaming. Nobody frozen mid-collapse. I opened the folder. Standard boilerplate, well-written. I could already tell Mara's team had handled the legal. There it was, just under the signature line, named Officer Operations Integrity. That phrase again, still mine. Only now it came with teeth. I reached for the pen. Just as I was about to sign, my phone buzzed, one notification. Breaking, Novatask funding suspended amid governance concerns. Subhead, sources cite internal leadership disputes and breach of investor agreements. I didn't flinch, didn't smile, didn't screenshot it for posterity. I just tapped the notification away and signed. James nodded once, then slid the folder into his briefcase. No toast, no handshake. Just 2 professionals walking out of the rubble and into the next phase, no theatrics required. On my way out, the receptionist handed me a badge with my name already printed. Below it, Operations Integrity Officer Founding Team. I tucked it into my pocket, walked out into the daylight. I never raised my voice, never slammed a door, never needed to. I let them burn their own bridge, while I built the next one, brick by brick, in silence. Because sometimes, the loudest revenge is no revenge at all. Just moving on with everything that mattered, while they're still stuck staring at the claws that killed their kingdom. You're the real MVPs of the office jungle. Thanks for watching. Smash that subscribe button, or the coffee pot might just forget your next brew.